Welcome to K-Drama Recaps, your one-stop shop for all things K-Drama. If you're new around here, just a heads up, spoilers ahead. With that out of the way, welcome to episode 8, the final episode of what I hope to be the first season of many more seasons to come. If you weren't aware, the Pachinko show is based on the New York Times bestseller by Min-Jin Lee, and where the show ends with this episode is really just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the overall storyline. This episode, however, opens up in Osaka, 1938. Noah is encouraging a fellow Korean student who's being bullied by his Japanese classmates not to lose heart. We are given a brief glimpse at the type of racism Koreans faced in early 20th century Japan, which, if you haven't noticed by now, is a common theme in this show. Isak picks up Noah from school and heads home for Mozasu's Doljanchi, which is the traditional Korean celebration of a baby's first birthday. Back in the day, it was very common for babies not to survive to their first birthday, and so celebrating this milestone is a huge deal. The scene ends with the Doljabi, a part of the tradition where a baby is presented with items meant to symbolize their future destiny. Whatever the baby grabs is meant to symbolize what path their life will take. For example, if a baby were to grab money, that meant that they were going to live a prosperous financial life. As far as baby Mozasu's choice is concerned, we are not shown what destiny he chooses. Given how well he does with pachinko parlors, however, I think it's safe to say that he grabbed that money. The next day, Noah arrives home without Isak. He had been waiting for his father for an hour and walked home by himself when Isak never showed up. Sanja and Noah make their way to the church to find out what has happened, and they find the building in complete disarray. The Japanese police are in the process of ransacking the church, looking for evidence of some kind. The pastor tells Sanja that Isak has been arrested. As a Korean living in Japan, this is not good news, and Sanja sends Noah to his uncle Yosep to see if he could help. Together, Sanja, Noah, and Yosep head to the police station to plead their case, and even little Noah joins in as a translator for his mom. But it's of no use. They will not be able to see Isak anytime soon. As they leave the police station without information or hope, Yosep returns to his job to see if his boss can help. Sanja in the meantime notices another Korean woman who is delivering a parcel to someone in the station. It turns out this woman actually knows Isak, and also the reasons behind his arrest by the police. The woman reveals that Sanja should meet a man named Hasegawasan, as he would be able to answer her questions better than she could. Meanwhile, at Yosep's workplace, he pleads with his Japanese employer, asking if there was anything he could do for his brother Isak. Yosep's boss asks him why Isak was arrested. Yosep tells him that he was accused of being an unpatriotic person. Suddenly and without notice, Yosep's boss fires him and asks him to leave for fear that Yosep's relation to that potential traitor would affect the biscuit factory's bottom line. What the viewers of the show may not understand is that the historical context of 1939 is such that Japan is gearing up for World War II, and any hint of sedition is dealt with swiftly and without mercy. In another part of the city, Sanja and Noah meet with Hasegawasan in a dark room. As it turns out, Hasegawasan is a professor who is involved with the Communist Party. He's been working with Isak to help people in the entire Asiatic region, and not just in Japan. It seems that Isak has been living something of a double life, because Sanja clearly has no idea this has been going on. The scene itself is uncomfortable, because Sanja relies completely upon young Noah's interpretation of what Hasegawa-san is saying, so one can only assume a lot is being lost in translation. But she understands enough to become very angry at Hasegawa-san and Isak for being so irresponsible and not thinking about how their activities would impact their loved ones. It dawns on her that Noah and Mozasu are without a father, and she without a husband. Suddenly, the police arrive and take everyone into custody. We see Sanja in a dark room with an officer being interrogated. She answers honestly and even admits with a bit of shame that she does not know how to read or write Japanese. Her honesty apparently is convincing enough to persuade the police to let her and Noah go. As they leave the station, coincidentally they see Isak, who is being transported to a different location. The two begin to shout for Isak, wanting to say goodbye one last time, unsure of when they would see each other again. Little Noah is small enough to get through the bars that separate them, and he chases after the car while his father Isak watches grief-stricken from the back of the vehicle. The heartbreak is palpable, but unfortunately an all too common tragedy that will befall most, if not all, the families living in this time period. The next morning, Kyungi wakes to find Sanja making a huge batch of kimchi. With Isak in prison and Yosep without a job, Sanja is unwilling to just give up and die, and so she has resolved that she will sell kimchi at the local market to make ends meet. That same morning, as Noah walks to school, he is approached by his biological father, Koansu, who is wearing a striking and iconic white suit. Of course, Noah has no idea who this man is, but it's obvious that Koa has been keeping tabs on him and is keenly aware of the tragedy that has befallen their family that week. With Isak out of the picture, Koa does his best to present himself as a surrogate father figure, making conversation and imparting some fatherly advice. He tells Noah to excel above everyone else, even above the Japanese, and to never look back, only forward. If you remember previous episodes, Koa did not respect Isak very much, and he clearly doesn't want Noah to follow in his father's footsteps. Back at the house, Sanja says goodbye to Mozasu and Kyungi. to go sell her fresh-made kimchi. She steps into the chaotic hustle and bustle of the market as she struggles to find a space for her cart. People sneer at her and hold their noses at the unfamiliar pungent smell of kimchi. Eventually, Sanja finds a space for her cart, but then is met with another obstacle as she has never had to sell anything before. Back in Korea, she was always the one buying, never selling. As she looks around, she swallows her pride and through a sheer force of will, quickly picks up what all the other vendors are doing to attract customers, and she does the same. Sanja is a survivor and she will succeed no matter the cost. Back to the future in 1989. Hana is dying and the family are forced to consider how to make her comfortable in her last moments. Solomon tells his father that he's been fired from Shifley's, but moreover that he's going to start working with Yoshi. Musasu is upset and he warns Solomon not to work with Yoshi, but there is no convincing Solomon otherwise. In the next scene, Solomon goes to Yoshi with a plan. Solomon may have been fired from his previous job, but he's no slouch. After all, back in episode 1, the plan to salvage the hotel deal was his brainchild. He tells Yoshi that he wants him to persuade Hangumja to sign over the property to them in a way that only a man like Yoshi knows how. He knows the predicament that Colton and Abisan are currently in, and whoever owns that property can ask for virtually anything. In Solomon's words, he wants to make them bleed for it. Back at the hospital, as Etsuko, Musasu, and Sanja are preparing to say their goodbyes to Hana, Solomon bursts into the room and starts to push Hana's bed out of the room. It turns out he was able to get Yoshi to pull some strings and get the paperwork to authorize Hana one final move out of the room and into the open air. Maybe he didn't have enough time to take Hana to Hawaii like she wanted, but he provides her the next best thing and brings Hawaii to her. He puts a lei around her neck and pushes her bed into the open air of the roof as they send Hana off this mortal coil. In the next scene, Sanja approaches her grandson on the hospital roof as she has something to give him. It's the pocket watch that has been in her possession at one point or another for most of her life. It seems after she sold the watch to repay Yosep's debt, it has somehow returned to her, which is a foreshadowing of the story to be told in future seasons of the show. She tells Solomon that she used to think that this watch was a curse, but after she realized that this watch saved her family, she's giving it to Solomon, hoping that it will do the same for him. Episode 8 ends in a rather uncommon way for a TV show. Instead of furthering the storyline, we are shown a documentary-style montage of real-life Sanjas. Women who faced unspeakable hardships and tragedies and yet came out the other end, thriving as strong, capable matriarchs of their respective families. The message is that although Sanja may be a fictional character, she is a representation of real people and real stories of women who endured the historical realities of their times. May we all be like these women and bless our families through our lives. If you enjoyed this episode of KDrama Recaps, press that like button and subscribe to our channel as this helps get our content out to more eyeballs. Is there a Korean drama that you'd like us to recap? Let us know in the comments below and hopefully we will cover that drama in future episodes. See you in the next episode.